All right. Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to give people just a couple more minutes to get into the chat, and then we're going to get started here in just a couple seconds. But as we're kind of working our way in, let's go ahead and start introducing ourselves. So I am Cory Collier. I am the U.S. Southeast Education Consultant for Valley Contacts. So I'm a full-time practicing doc down here in Naples, Florida, at a group MDOD practice. And also on our webinar tonight, we have Dr. Deom. Are you there, Dr. Deom?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, great. Yes, so hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you and glad that you can make it tonight. And we're very excited to hear from Dr. Collier about building a successful scleral lens practice. I'm in the Northeast. Have the privilege to be the Northeast Educational Representative, and we have a private practice called Hazleton Eye Specialists in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, where we do primary eye care, and we have a special interest in specialty contact lenses, particularly scleral contact lenses.
Yeah, and so I joined my practice about 2 years ago. It was an MD-only location, and they were bringing in optometrists for the first time. And so really when we got started, I was kind of tasked with not only developing optometry practice within this group, but really based off of my prior background, what I wanted to do was build a scleral lens practice. And so I really tried to approach that from the ground up with some of the concepts that we're going to go over here tonight, in order to give a kind of a roadmap and allow you to customize it to your own individual needs into building your own scleral lens practice, whether you are just looking to expand the scleral lens practice that you have or really starting up from scratch and getting into scleral lenses. So we'll go ahead and get moving through. So throughout the night, we're going to pop in a couple of just notes about things that Valley Contacts can do to help you build your scleral lens practice in addition to your own endeavors throughout. And so one thing that Jimmy and I both really feel is a good motivator for yourself is to kind of walk the walk that your patient is going to, and that's by fitting either yourself or having one of your other doctors hit you in the custom stable lenses. And so Valley can help support you in that by giving all doctors in your practice a free set of lenses. Jimmy, you can fit in?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm an emmetrope. I don't wear soft lenses or anything, no glasses. But, I think that, there really is no other better way for you to understand what a patient's going to go through. Oftentimes I will, go grab the lenses and show a patient, put it on in front of them so they can see me do it successfully. I don't know many doctors that get a new soft lens set and don't try them on their own eye first, So I think it just follows the reasoning that you normally follow with any other technology in your office, that you would try it yourself first. And kudos to Valley for sticking their necks out a little bit and allowing you to go ahead and get your own set. So I think that's really the first thing you should all, if you haven't done it, get yourself a set of lenses. Number one, you're going to see what your patients are going through, and then number two, you're going to be able to better communicate with your patients what they're going to expect as they go through the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And so I think whenever we think about practice management and building our practice, one of the most important things that we can do is envision our practice through the eyes of our patients, right? So we'll continue to harp on that as we go throughout the night, and really with fitting, that's the first thing. So these are kind of my general steps to becoming a successful scleral lens practice, and it really starts with the ocular surface. So we're going to talk about mastering the ocular surface a little bit. Then we'll talk about kind of presenting a unified front, in that scleral lenses need to be at the forefront of your staff, of your mind, in order to be in the front of your patient's mind as well. Creating protocols to help you kind of streamline your clinical practices, make sure that you're always on the same page with your staff and with your patients while you're working patients through the fitting process and for them to be successful moving forward. And then once we have everything in place within our practice, we can really build and keep a referral network, which is a huge emphasis for especially like practices, is really getting extra patients that you don't have access to in your own practice into your practice as well. And then next week, Dr. Deom is going to take the lead on our next webinar, webinar 2, which is to code and bill like an expert. So once we get patients in, when we can fit them successfully, we need to make sure that the reimbursement's there as well, and Jimmy will take care of that for us next week. So let's start with the ocular surface, and really this, I titled the subsection Knowing the Enemy. This is not, of course, meant to be a conclusive lecture on dry eye management, but before we can introduce a scleral lens to patients' eyes, in order for us to be successful, we really need to make sure the ocular surface is maximized to be successful and to treat the underlying dry eye that is there in both symptomatic and asymptomatic patients. So when we're looking at that initial exam, the first time we get to meet the patient and get to know their eyes a little bit better, many of us are looking for the big factors for dry eye, right? We're looking at the lids, looking at the corneas, but we really should dig, as deep as we can in that introductory visit to make sure that there aren't any underlying issues that can pop up and decrease our lens comfort or wear time or our ability to be successful. So as we go through these areas of the eye, we want to make sure we know really specifically what the patient's eyes look like before we introduce lenses. So that way we can know as we're getting started with lenses if we are making any modifications to the ocular surface that we want to avoid as well. So I'm a big advocate on, as we're getting started with the patient, to really match the treatment to the patient. I don't think there's a universal protocol that you can apply to every patient. But I think it's very important to be as specific as possible for each patient. Any of us who goes into a drugstore or walk into an eye care section know that there are just an endless array of options for patients to gravitate towards. And you want to make sure they're using the product that, one, you want them to use, and two, you know what they are using so that if there's issues or changes, that we can make those modifications as we need to. I also like to just start right off the bat by being as aggressive as possible to get the patient comfortable before we get started with the lenses. So I jump right into preservative-free tears before we start with the lens, because I'm going to use preservative-free tears when the lens is on, get the patient used to that comfort and used to using those drops. I am an advocate of warm compresses for those patients with evaporative disease and meibomian gland dysfunction, and I always advocate for some type of actual eye mask, not a warm compress with the washcloth. It just doesn't hold its heat well enough to actually make a difference and heat the meibomian glands to a level where they can at all begin expression. And then don't be shy about using pharmaceuticals, whether they're Restasis, Viagra, anti-inflammatory medications, steroids, anything to get the patient to a level playing ground before you get the lens started. And so for me, success is really spelled with routine. And I tell this to my dry eye patients, and I let them know that dry eye treatment is not a very exciting treatment. It's something that you have to stick with day in and day out in order to keep your eyes comfortable. I explain to all my patients that most of us use artificial tears when our eyes are dry or irritated or when they're red, but we should use them as on a consistent basis so we can avoid both the highs and lows of how our eyes feel and how we see. And so I incorporate the mantra of daily hygiene because I think that's something that everyone can understand as far as, whether it's cleaning the teeth, taking a shower, things like that. Stress to them that the eyelids need their hygiene too, and that their eyes need those artificial tears on a routine basis. I am very product specific when I'm talking to patients. I do not like the saying of any over-the-counter tears should work, and I hear patients tell me that all the time, that their doctor just told them to grab something off the shelf. And I think that the more we know about what our patients are putting in their eyes, the better we're going to be able to manage them. And so I like patients when they come in to be able to tell me exactly what they use, and if they can't, then I stress the products that I like and have them use, and on our follow-up visit, I consistently remind them to use something that we know what it is, and we know if they're being successful with it. And then we'll talk about cleaning regimen in more detail later as we go into protocols. So if anyone has any questions as we're going through here, go ahead and just throw them into that main chat. As we get to these areas where we kind of have a break, we'll try to address things as they come up here. So Jimmy, have we had anything come in yet?
No, nothing has come in yet.
Okay, perfect. So by all means, just let those questions fly as we go through, and we'll get to them as we get these section breaks. So we'll move on to the next part, which is Sclerals on the mind presenting a unified front. So this is really going to jump into the practice management side of things and look at how to get yourself and your staff on the same page as far as scleral lenses in your practice. So obviously it starts at the top, and your education with scleral lenses is really paramount to your success. So being here tonight, listening to this webinar, obviously you guys are taking the steps to understand this piece in more detail. And so attending meetings, these webinars, many scleral lens manufacturers are presenting webinars that really can be useful for patients, for practitioners, as well as more organized optometry meetings such as CPLI. Articles in our mainstream publications, the amount of scleral lens articles are just increasing exponentially every year. And so there's so much information that's available for us to learn from, as well as some hands-on workshops at the big national meetings, as well as workshops provided by contacts going around the country to help doctors actually get hands-on lenses in non-threatening environments and put lenses on eyes so that way you can see what we're looking for when we're fitting these lenses. The next thing is, once you know scleral lenses in general and you decide which lab you're going to partner with, you really need to understand the lens design. You know, what lens you're working with, what can be customized in the lens, how you customize it in order to be most successful in that lens and really utilize that lens design to its fullest. And so many, for instance, the Valley Contacts, the custom stable, it has important evaluation markings on the diagnostic lenses that can help you in your assessment of the lens on the patient. And so by understanding what markings are there and how to notate them, you can communicate with your lab most effectively so that everyone is speaking the same language so that the patient can be successful in the lens. And so one great resource on Valley Contacts website are for some provider resources, which there's some videos on how to fit, there's the fitting guide in general, and really call the consultants and ask them, how do I go through a fitting process and make sure that I have all the information I need in order to communicate myself to you. And I think once you open that two-way stream of communication, it really makes a huge difference on your successfulness with your patients and fitting them. And so, for instance, this is the custom stable, and this would be the custom stable Elite. And so those of you familiar with custom stable Elite, there's two circles on the flat meridian of that lens, and those are notated in this picture here. And so by understanding what those markers show you, you can really better evaluate that lens on the eye. And the next thing is once you've been educated, you know all about scleral lenses and you know what lens design you're working with, in order to be successful, everyone has to be on board in the office. And so educating your staff is absolutely paramount. You have to, my best way of talking about integrating scleral lenses into a practice is by approaching scleral lenses like purchasing a new piece of equipment. So if you purchase a piece of equipment for your practice and you spend $25,000 to $100,000 on a piece of equipment, not only are you going to try that equipment out, like Dr. Deom was mentioning earlier, but you're also going to make sure that your staff understands the equipment. They understand what that equipment is adding to your practice. They understand what patients could possibly benefit from that. And they understand how to talk to patients about it in order to plant the seed in their head so that you can continue to select good patients for that technology and get the patient into a modality that works for them. And so everyone has to be knowledgeable. When I was getting started with our new practice, maybe 3 or 4 months into it, I actually had a patient who had just finished their successful fit. We got him taken care of. He ended up very happy with the lenses, but he mentioned to me at the final visit that on our first visit, I almost lost him. He almost lost me at that first visit, doc. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the technician who brought me into the room, I told him I was here for scleral lenses, and they said that they didn't know what scleral lenses were. And so I thought to myself, the patient saying this, that if the technician doesn't know, then the doctor must not do that many of these lenses. And so that was really an eye-opener for me because it was a technician that I don't generally work with. But it really nailed home to me that everyone needs to know about these lenses because at any moment's notice, a patient could talk to a staff member about it, and they have to be able to give knowledgeable information. And finally, to really get your staff involved. And this is going to benefit you in getting your staff more comfortable working with these lenses and talking to patients about these lenses. And the best way to do this is just like when we're learning, is to get hands-on. So having your staff put lenses on each other's eyes, being fit with the lenses. And there's some really, creative ways that you can do this. And I think Dr. Deom has some good input on this section here as far as getting your staff integrated.
Yeah, so, one idea that we sort of spearheaded in our office, and I'm not sure if I heard it somewhere else, but, we kind of wanted to make this an exciting, fun thing for our patients, or for our staff. So we had a party. We had a scleral lens fitting party. And, this was right after I joined the practice. And basically, I came into a situation very similar to Dr. Collier. This was an established practice that I joined that had not previously had scleral lenses in the office. So, very similar situation. The staff had no idea what they were. And I think I recall some of our staff saying similar things, some of the first fits that I did before we did the party. And we did. We got pizza. We, had some drinks, and it was after hours, and we paid our staff to be there. We provided food. And the goal of the night was basically to have every single person, be fit with the lens and then also fit someone else with the lens. Everybody from our front of office staff, the receptionist, including our technicians, even our billing person took part in this because, if anybody's dealing with sclerals a lot, it's our billing person. So, we wanted every single one of them to have the feel of the lens on their eye, see what it was to see out of them. And then we actually wrote into our employee contract, they do get certain things. They get glasses, for the year. We actually wrote into our contract that they would get a free set of lenses. So, or not a free set of lenses, but 50% off. And we have several of our staff that take care of that. So, it was something that allowed them all to kind of get a real grasp on it, something that allowed them all to be very excited about it. And, that night is something that, we talk about a lot, actually. And people, refer to as, a really fun event. And we've actually done it with other things that we brought in new to the practice. So Custom Stable, Valley Contacts, would like to help you guys do that in your offices. And so, if you're going to have an evening where you're going to, set aside time in your practice to do something like this, we'd like to help you do that and provide, food for your staff to have a nice, fun environment to get more educated about the lens.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for our practices as a team builder and really make sure that everyone is on the same page when we're presenting these lenses to patients because it's top to bottom, everyone needs to be there. So at this point, we'll move into our next section, which is creating a protocol, and obviously the most difficult part of that is following it for many lessons. So really this section is with the idea that every practice is different, and what will work for one practice won't necessarily work for the other. I think the most important take-homes from this is kind of general ideas about being consistent with your patients so that you, your patient, and your staff are all on the same page so that when there's issues or deviations that we can modify them as we need to. And so for me, one of the things that I start with is exam sequencing. And I think there's some fundamental things that we need to understand about scleral lens fitting before we think about how we integrate it into our schedule and into our templates for patients' appointments. And so The realities of scleral lens fitting are one, that these lenses are an investment, and that patients want to understand and know both the cost of them and their insurance coverage for them. And this is vital information for the patient to make decisions before moving forward with fitting. I think that presenting these lenses as an investment to the patient is appropriate because this is truly an investment in their vision. I've had so many patients tell me that this is the best investment they've ever made in their health because of the type of quality of life changes that they can get with these lenses. And so I think conveying that information to a patient right off the start is important, and finding out, doing the legwork to make sure that we know what the patient is going to be responsible for at the end of the day. Two is that during the fitting, there will be downtime. And this is something that I learned from my own mishap as well, maybe early on in our practice, and that's that if there's going to be downtime in an exam, so we're going to put these lenses on and then we're going to let them settle onto the eyes for 20 or 30 minutes. And so during that time period, the patient's going to be inactive and not interacting with you, perhaps, if you have a patient that you're working with or something. And so I think it's important from your initial fitting to make sure that patients understand that there will be downtime during their visits and that you're not ignoring them or pushing them to the side so you can work with other people. It's just because the nature of the lenses, they are better at that when they've been on the eyes for a longer period of time. You know, I had a patient one time I put the lens on, said, okay, everything looks good, let's let this lens settle in the waiting room for about 30 minutes, and then I'll bring you back in. And then when he came back in, he kind of had, a kind of a smirk on his face, and he said, oh, did you enjoy your lunch? And it got me thinking that he probably thought that I just kind of took a break from him, and that wasn't the case, of course. So from then on, I really educate patients that there will be downtime, bring something to do, and that's expected during the fitting. Multiple visits are required. I present this to patients with this exact spiel, which I talk to patients about all the time, and that's that these lenses are highly customized in order to maximize both your health, vision, or also your health, vision, and comfort. And because of that customization, multiple visits will be required in order to find a perfect lens for you. And so that way they understand from the beginning that this is not a one-time fix. Especially if you have patients who have worn contact lenses in the past and who have worn perhaps soft lenses or even corneal GPs where it may not take quite as much time to evaluate the lens or have as much office time or as many modifications. You want to make sure they know that this is a process, that you're working towards a goal, and that multiple visits will be required in order to achieve it. And this is inherent to scleral lenses especially, is that separate insertion and removal training visits may be necessary before the patient can go home with the lenses. And so you hate disappointing a patient in that you get them this great lens and they're seeing excellent, their comfort's great in your office chair, and they can't get the lens in and out, and they were expecting to go home with it the very first day. So I set the patient expectations from the beginning that even if we have an excellent lens, we have to teach you how to properly handle the lens before you can go home, and that may require an extra visit or two before you're comfortable and we're comfortable with you handling the lenses, so that they know from the beginning that that's a possibility. And so when we have all these ideas in mind, we can jump into exam sequencing for individual practices. And so I have two kind of exam sequences here, and they're both really built on the same premise, and it depends on how busy your practice is and how your patient flow works. But for a busy practice, say a practice that is well booked, not a lot of space for flexibility between exams, at your initial visit, we do a comprehensive eye exam, and say you identify that patient as a potential scleral lens wearer. What I would do is talk to the patient about scleral lenses and educate them that they may benefit from a new lens technology that we're offering in our clinic. This technology allows us to fit patients who we previously couldn't or get results that we previously couldn't achieve. And at this visit, if I have some time, what I'll do is I'll put one lens on the eye, and I'll explain to the patient, we're going to do just a quick trial with this lens. The goal of this isn't to fit you in this lens. The goal is to see what we could expect if we went down this path for you. And so if it's an ectasia patient, for instance, I'll put a lens on their eyes and see what kind of visual improvement we can get and what kind of comfort we can get right out of the box. It's truly amazing for many keratoconus patients who have worn all different types of lenses. For that initial scleral lens that goes on the eyes, the comfort difference is just overwhelming for a lot of the patients. And so you dial in the vision with an over-refraction quickly, and you show them what they can achieve. And then you say, okay, well, if this seems like we're on the same page and we want to move forward with this, let's research your insurance more, understand what your costs will be, and let's get you scheduled for our next available fitting where we can discuss that and move forward. And so then we mutually agree to move forward. We'll bring them back for an actual fitting. This is where we put lenses on both eyes, allow them to settle a proper amount of time, evaluate the lenses, and achieve our customized order for the patient. At that point, we'll order a lens. We'll bring the patient back in about a week. That'll allow for the new lens to come in. And then we will dispense the lens, have the patient in for a morning appointment. As your staff becomes more accustomed to to inserting these lenses, many providers feel comfortable having the staff insert the lens, have the patient sit in the waiting room, then you evaluate the lens in 20 to 30 minutes, make sure everything looks as you expect, and then staff will teach INR with the patient, make sure the lens is inserted properly before the patient leaves, and then come back that afternoon for a fit check. Having worn the lens for a longer period of time so you can get a better look at the patient. At that point, you can either modify the lens or go ahead and schedule them for their 1-week follow-up if everything looks great with your first lens. At that 1-week follow-up, we'll do an afternoon appointment so that you can see the patient after they've worn the lens. My rule is for a minimum of 4 hours. This will really allow you to take a look at what the lens looks like more towards the middle or end of day. Look for signs that the lens is tightening up throughout the day or that you still have adequate clearance. And then if everything looks good, that patient is essentially done with that lens fit. And in 1 month, we'll be looking at an ocular health examination to make sure that their eye's tolerating the lens well. And this is really my recommended format. The only modification would be if we have more freedom at that first visit and we could actually fit the patient in that first visit. The issue with this second exam sequence is that you have to have staff that's available to check insurance benefits or pre-authorizations on these things. And you have to have time in the middle of your day to be able to stop and actually fit and take the time to fit the patient. That's really the only modification between the two. And is this a similar sequence that you follow, Dr. Deom?
Yeah, typically I do. I try, unless the patient's been referred and I know that we're, have them doing that and that's what they're coming in for and we have the time, put aside. I try to get the patient to put the lens on their eye. I say, I really don't, think that you can make a informed decision about this new technology without at least trying it. So, I'll at least get one lens on and let them, take a look and see how it feels, see how they're seeing through it. And, based on that experience, if we're able to get it on really easily, which, 9 times out of 10 we are, I'll probably just continue with the rest of the fit and get a quick over refraction and go from there. And then sometimes what we'll do is we will say, we're going to have to investigate your insurance. Once we find out what's going on with the insurance, we can call you and let you know whether or not you've gotten coverage. So sometimes, we'll go through the fit and I'll tell them this is, I'll put one lens on, say, all right, how does this feel? Do you want to go through with the rest of the fit? If yes, then I'll put the second lens on and do the over refraction. I'll let them know they're responsible for the cost of the fit. Their insurance may or may not cover it, but at that point, they've already had the opportunity to fill the lens on their eye, see how they see out of it, and they've bought into it. They believe in it. They want to go through it. You were talking about, discussing to the patient, the length of time and, sort of the dedications they're going to need to have in addition to your dedication. And one of the things that I always do is describe this process as a journey. And, that I'm willing to go on the journey with them if they're willing to go on the journey with me. And it's a process, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to give them the absolute best vision possible. But they'll have to meet me in the middle, and it will require some work on their end. But if they're willing to go on that journey, then it could start at that point in our office.
I think that's a great way of presenting to the patient. Positive language and expectations are really going to be fundamental in succeeding for the process. That can be as detailed as Scleral fit. So that's great. So moving on to other protocols. So once we establish how the patient is going to flow through our practice, and again, every practice will be different. You have to decide what works best for you and your patient. The next thing to do is try to set up kind of repeatable protocols that you use for your scleral lens patient, so that one, this is this type of patient. I know what type of cleaning regimen they're doing. I know what they're doing on a daily basis with these lenses. And two, your staff knows, and the patients are all on the same page. And so for me, refractive patients, so patients who are kind of outside the box scleral lens patients, maybe patients who have failed in soft contact lenses, have normal corneas, and we've been successful in a scleral lens fit. And then all the irregular corneas without significant ocular surface disease. I'm going to use either a multi-purpose solution or peroxide. I tend to move more towards the multi-purpose solution in these patients for simplicity's sake for the patient, something that they're familiar with if they are moving from soft lenses or from other lens modalities. But be consistent in your application, I think, is the real nail-home point of this. For those patients who I know have ocular surface disease, about 70% of the patients who I fit are for actually dry eye indications. And so these patients, or patients who have transplants, I jump right into peroxide with some form of a daily cleaner, like optimum extra strength cleaner at the time of removal before peroxide soak overnight. And then be consistent with your preservative-free saline solutions. We know now that our options are increasing. They continue to increase as far as what we can use as a solution inside of the lens. But it's a good idea to direct your patient towards a particular product and make it so that it's consistent across your practice if you can, so that everyone's on the same page. Again, this is a huge area where you need to be product specific, and patient education really falls into a huge category in being successful with your patients. And so I had a patient who I gave a ClearCare sample to and told them verbally that they could also use PeroxyClear. And of course, they came in. This was before PeroxyClear was voluntarily recalled. And the patient came in with a tube of PeroxyCare toothpaste. This is no joke. And asked me if this was correct. And this is instantly when I knew the patient needed printed instructions for that, and to not ad lib off of my printed instructions and be brand specific as possible. So patients ended up with what they needed. Luckily, they weren't using it on the lens because they had at least a little bit of a mindset that this didn't seem quite right. But patient education is really a key in being successful with these patients. So we have to set the bar, and I think that setting goals is so fundamental to success. I can't imagine a world where we know if we're successful if we don't know what goal we're trying to achieve. And so you have to set goals with your patients and help your patients set realistic goals for their fitting. So whether it's visual goals, whether it's decreasing artificial tears and ocular surface disease, or restoring clear vision in patients who have had compromise, it's important for both you and the patient to mutually agree on goals that are realistic and can be achieved, and then assess yourself as you're going through your fitting process and see if you can achieve those goals. And again, just expectations as far as fitting process, multiple visits, long visits, and using positive language, like Dr. Deom was saying. This is a journey we're moving towards goals that we both think are important for you, and really being accountable in that, have we met those goals, and how can we continue to work to meet those goals in the future. So education tools that I like to use in my practice: every patient who leaves with a scleral lens leaves with a printed instruction sheet of exactly what my instructions are to that patient, from care instructions. This is your care solution. This is how you use it. This is how often you replace your lens case, everything down to the T. their wear schedule instructions, how many hours the initial day they're supposed to wear it, how many hours day 2, day 3, day 4, what to expect and what not to expect. I think that in the beginning when I was working with these lenses, I had a lot of either calls or patient questions that could be mitigated by just laying it out from the very beginning as to what is expected, basically like a frequently asked questions list. And so, you're talking to your patients about, maybe normal when you're starting with the lenses, that when you remove the lens, you might see a minimal amount of redness on your eye, but this redness should improve over the course of 5 to 10 minutes. If it does not, then we should slow down how fast we're introducing this lens to your eye, understanding that your vision may blur after several hours of wearing the lens and what to do about it. So you can kind of go through those frequently asked questions and try to avoid issues before they happen, so that patients understand and are on the same page. I'll discuss where to purchase supplies, if someone needs to go online, the website, and also where to find more information that wasn't written by myself, right? And I think that is a useful tool to give patients outside information that is reliable, so that because we know that our patients are going to go online and search for health information. And so directing them to reliable sources from the get-go is oftentimes helpful so that you can somewhat control and make sure that your patients are getting accurate and useful information for them. And so Valley Contact has generated some patient education and handling care brochures for your patients that they will provide to you in your practice. Also, when you order a lens, if we back up just 2 slides here, we can see that every lens comes with a patient welcome kit, which has a unique pH starter in it. It has a little case with a mirror with DMB inserter and remover and a case, as well as a little Ziploc bag and some lacquer pure. And so really get your patient started off on the right foot so you can be product specific and tell them and give them samples as they're getting started. And so next we're going to jump into building and keeping a referral network, but I think this would be a good time to take a break for just a moment and talk about a couple questions that have been coming up. Jimmy, do you have any questions in mind?
Yeah, there's a couple here. Do you want to, I put in the main chat there a question from Stephen. Perfect.
So Stephen Blake has been asking a couple of questions here. First off, contraindications for scleral lenses or things that you would avoid. For me, contraindications would be highly compromised endothelial cell count. These lenses do pose a barrier to oxygen, and so patients who are very at risk for swelling, I'm either going to try other lens options or take those into very careful consideration while fitting the lenses to minimize the oxygen demand on the eye. As far as ocular surface disease contraindications, I really don't have any. I have fit patients in a range of conditions on the ocular surface, and I think that as long as you're proactive in treating the disease process, you educate your patients on when to call for help, when to be careful in how much they're wearing the lenses, and you keep a close eye on them. I don't have any ocular surface disease contraindications. They're more relative than absolute.
Yeah, Cory, I would agree with you there. I think I think there's less ocular contraindications, probably more personality type contraindications. I see the kind of the lead into the second part of the Stephen's question was, are there any personality types or lens history that you would not try the lenses on? I think one group of people who, I'm always really careful about whether or not I want to refit them in a scleral is somebody who's really happy with a gas perm lens. These individuals typically don't want to change and have a really close, intimate relationship with their corneal gas perm lenses, unless there's some real big issue with them and I could see that they're going to, significantly improve, then I'm not going to go for it. I think looking at the visual acuity the patient has with their current modality and asking yourself, by putting this scleral lens on their eye, what kind of improvement am I going to provide this person, or what kind of comfort level am I going to provide this person improvement? And is that worth the perceived work that they're going to have by, using plungers, maybe having a different cleaning routine, having to put solution in the eye? If you're able to warrant that extra work by having some, subjective improvement by the patient, I think you're going to win every single time. But if they're, if they're going to get, good comfort, good vision with what they're doing equal to the scleral lens, then you're going to have a tough time, discussing it with them, I think. So,
I really agree, Jimmy. And a quick anecdote on that, I have an RK patient who had done contact lenses forever, and they failed, and so they got RK. This was years ago, of course. And then since then, they tried everything under the sun, and they couldn't get it to work. And so when we got started with our scleral lens fitting, they were just visibly hesitant to go forward with this. You could see it in their demeanor. That they were reluctant and kind of maybe not buying into that this was going to be an option for them. And so through, positive language, understanding, setting expectations and saying, this is where your vision is. We can achieve an improvement. Will this process be worth it? And the patient said, of course, yes, if we can improve things. And just Monday, I finished with their fitting. I actually finalized their lenses on Monday morning, mid-afternoon. And they said that they were so hesitant to start with the lenses that they were actually nervous to come into the office, so that this was the best decision they could have made for their vision. And so really, if you just take the time to explain to these patients that it's a process, that you can work with them, I think that you can work through the personality types and make patients help patients be successful in these lenses.
This last question by Steven, I'm going to just answer real quick. He said, do you pre-appoint all visits or wait until the lens comes in? Well, I'll answer from my perspective. One thing I could say about Valley is that they're extremely reliable as far as, providing lenses in a timely fashion. I'm in Pennsylvania. As you know, Valley Contacts is in Oregon. I get all my lenses in, I would say 3 to 5 business days without any, delay. So, I could, I think, pre-appoint my visits, but I usually do wait until the lenses are in and just, go ahead and schedule it once the lenses are in. And I always tell the patient it's going to take about a week for the lenses to come in. We'll call you and we'll get you in very soon. My staff knows that when a patient is called to pick up their lenses, that we're getting them in, and we want to get that process moving. So I would encourage you to, when the lenses come in, don't, wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Allow there to be some flexibility in your schedule. Get that process started, because these people are eager. Like you said, that one patient of yours was nervous. Get the process moving, get the lenses in, get them on their eyes.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So moving into...
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any other questions there, Jimmy?
How about this one?
Do we have a general BCVA you go off of before selecting patients? So I would say no. I do not.
I would agree.
VA where I say if you're worse than this, I'll jump into a scleral lens versus another lens modality. I had another practitioner provide me with asked me at a dinner. I told them that I was fitting many scleral lenses, and they said to me, "Well, do all the patients deserve it?" And I found the comment to be so interesting to me, and that the mindset is so far off from my own, and that I think that if scleral lenses are the patient's best option, they should be in scleral lenses, and that what qualifies it as the best option for one patient doesn't necessarily qualify it as the best option for another, meaning patients shouldn't have to struggle through other lens modalities before going into a scleral lens. I think that we can be proactive, helping patients achieve comfortable and clear vision out of the box instead of...
I couldn't agree more, Cory. I think that there is a very prevalent mindset amongst older practicing, practitioners that the scleral lens is at the end of the road. It's the last house on the block. And, I appreciate older doctors having that mentality, because, then they come to my office and we change their life, and, they're just so grateful that they've had the opportunity to try those lenses. And they always ask every single time, why wasn't I offered this 20 years ago? And maybe the lens options weren't there, but, I would say, like Dr. Collier is saying, I don't think that this has to be the last option, the last house on the block. Let your patients have good vision now. Why wait?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so moving into our last subsection here, we're talking about building and keeping a referral network. So now we've got policies in place. We've got our staff on board. We know how we're going to work with these patients. And so now we have to get patients into our chairs. And scleral lenses, be it as they are right now, are seen as a specialty item. And so what we need is access to patients that are above and beyond our own practice. So referrals are fundamental to successful scleral lens practice. And so what I look at as referral sources is kind of the set up hierarchy pyramid here. And that for me personally, I find that corneal specialists can be an excellent source of referral to you. Followed by primary care optometry, those doctors who see these patients but do not want to take them on as scleral lens patients. Primary care ophthalmology follows that in those areas where we can work hand in hand. And then other contact lens fitters who have worked with these patients and struggled and found that they are unable to achieve a successful outcome, and willing to give you a shot with their patient and see if you can make a difference for them. And so my recommendation, as always with trying to gain any referrals to your practice in all areas, is meeting as many of these people in person as you can, and then asking them what they need in order for you to be successful with their patients, and then explaining to them how you can deliver it. So whether it's your experience with the lenses and fitting these patients, or patients who you fit in the past and been successful with, whether it's technology in the practice, your website access to care, your office staff, all these aspects come together to create a good referral source. So keeping referrals, what we want to do is give these referring doctors what they want, which is high quality care. They want their patients to be happy with the care they're receiving. They want a prompt appointment. So the thing that will lose you referrals from a practice is if a patient is referred to your practice and the first appointment that you'll give them is several months away. Nothing drives the referring doctor crazy. And think about it from your own perspective. If you're referring a patient out for whatever reason, you want to know that that patient is going to be seen promptly. And when I refer a patient, I want to know what happened with the patient, obviously, and I think that many referring doctors feel the same. And so prompt post-care communication, sending those patients, sending the doctors information about the patient, how you're doing with them, and then, of course, when you're done, sending the patient back to continue their comprehensive care with the referring doctor. I think a really important way to stay relevant with your referring docs is just communicate with them on a regular basis. Many of us, it's a two-way street, and I surround myself with a referral network of doctors who I am comfortable referring my patients to, and they're comfortable referring their patients to me, because we all believe in each other's clinical skills and the clinical environment that we practice in. And so regular communicating with the doctors in your area through association meetings or continuing education events in your area. Many offices develop newsletters which can keep you, on your referral network's mind at all times, and sharing case reports or journal articles with docs about, your successes, or, this is the success that we've been having with this lens. This is the type of patient that we recently fit and we did really well with it. Maybe it's something that you hadn't thought of before to the referring doc. And I think that just provides even more information to those docs to continue to refer to you, because they know you're on the cutting edge and that you're staying relevant with information. And perhaps most importantly is referring to yourself. Those of us in group practices, if everyone's on the same page, then we can develop referrals from within the practice. But even solo practitioners, discuss proper contact lens options with all appropriate patients. We get so bogged down in our daily routine of comprehensive eye exams that sometimes we overlook patients who could really benefit from either new lens technology or aren't even in scleral lenses, but may benefit from it from an ocular service standpoint or from a refractive standpoint. So think outside the box. It's important to talk to your patients about their hobbies. Is there something that they could benefit from scleral lenses? Scleral lenses are extremely stable on the eyes. They provide consistent vision that doesn't fluctuate. For those patients who have high amounts of astigmatism, where their soft lenses may rotate on them while they're being active, scleral lenses can be a great option for those patients, and something that you may not think about right off the bat. And so talking to patients about their vision demands can really help increase your conversations with them in relating to scleral lenses. Early adapters, those patients who are technology driven, the ones who have the iPhone, new iPhone before you do, and is really interested in the most up-to-date options for them. Acute observers, these are GP optics, right? So we can get excellent vision for these patients, whether they're high ametropias or contact lens astigmatism patients. We can really get clear and concise vision with these lenses. And then, of course, your happy contact lens patients. Contact lens dropout is the bane of contact lens wearers everywhere. We know that patients who report to their doctors that they're comfortable with their current lenses may not actually be as comfortable as they think. So you really have to ask more questions than are you happy with your lenses. You need to ask about, morning and end of day comfort, how many times they're using artificial tears, how their eyes look when they take their lenses out. All these questions can really drive you towards an improved treatment modality for your patients. And if scleral lenses are that option, then that works great.
Just one thing, Cory, I wanted to add to the referral, going back to this gaining referral slide. I love how you stratified, the different referral sources. And, I think, if you're looking to get started in this and really trying to grow your referral base, get out there, go talk to these docs and try and familiarize yourself with them, ask them about their practice, ask them about their family, try and be genuinely interested in who they are as a person, and then let them know about how passionate you are about this, what you've done to get involved and what you've done to educate yourself, and let them know that you're there to help them, either through referral, that they can, send their patients to you and you'll send them back, or, one thing that I've offered to them as well is, I love doing this so much and I believe in it so much that I would actually come over here and help you fit one of your patients. No one's ever taken me up on that, but, I think it just allows you to have, and I would do it, actually. One doc and I keep on batting back and forth about trying to get a time to do that. But, I think probably what that does is it allows the doctor to know that you're not there, in a disingenuous way. You're definitely there to try and help, better the patients in that community. And, whether or not they want to co-manage the patient with you or whether they want to learn about it too, you're just trying to bring that education to them. And one other thing is, if you do get a referral from somebody, especially the first referral, I would write a handwritten thank you. In addition to your notes about the patient, a handwritten thank you to let them know that you appreciate their time in referring a patient, putting the trust in you. And I would provide food in the form of, nothing crazy, but maybe some donuts or some coffee cards or something like that to the office. I've done that every single time I've gotten a first-time referral from a doctor, and it is always paid in spades. Take a couple bucks and thank that doctor, thank that office. They're the people that are going to get those patients to your office and build your referral base.
Yeah, I think those are all really great suggestions. We have to be thankful for working with our practitioner partners, and so it goes both ways, right? And so that's great to think about. So one other thing that Custom Stable has done to try to help you refer to yourself too is an access to you can get found by patients looking for custom stable fitters in the area. So there's a Custom Stable patient website which provides information on a custom stable lens, and it also provides a fitter locator which patients can use to help find docs who fit custom stable lenses in their area. And so I've had a couple of patients actually say that they've found offices when I've been around the communities that they've found offices through this portal actually. And so finally, when we're talking about referral doctors, I think that it's really important to have an open line of communication with the doc. And so what I use when I'm working with referring doctors with scleral lenses in particular is a two-letter system where when the first time I see the patient, I send an initial contact letter back to the doc. Quickly, I'm thanking them for their referral and letting them know that we're getting the process started. And then I send them a second letter when we're all done with our outcome and our return to the referring. And so I think this allows for two things. One is that the referring doctor knows that you're getting the process started. So you've satisfied that timely appointment criteria that we talked about before. And then two, it gives you time to get results, because this is not a one-visit fix, as we know. This is not an overnight process. And so by letting the doctor know the process has started, it allows you to get the results you want. So that way you can convey those back to the patient, to the referring doc. And so letter one, we're just going to say thank you. We're going to apply a diagnosis and just be brief and direct, so that the doctor knows that we're just getting the process started. And so we'll say thank you. We'll provide the diagnosis. We're going to say scleral lens fitting initiated today, and keep it real simple. We know from our referral letters that we don't necessarily need a lot of information. We just need to know that that patient's being cared for, and then we'll look for more information when it's available. And so then letter two is going to allow us to talk about the outcome and make sure that the doctor knows that we're returning the patient for their comprehensive care. And so we're going to say thank you. We're going to supply the diagnosis again, but then we're going to say an outcome. So whatever the goal that either the referring doctor sent to you or that the patient has set for themselves, we want to make sure that we include that they met that goal or how they met the goal, so that the doctor knows that we achieved our endpoint. And then we're going to give some concise continued care instructions so that everyone's on the same page as to what we're doing moving forward. And at that point, I include their last office visit, the complete notes, so that way if they are more interested, they can look at it. So again, we say thank you, the diagnosis, and then here for this patient, keratoconus, irregular cornea, we're going to be concerned with the visual outcome, and so we'll say the BCVA with new sclerals is this, and so we've achieved our goal. I'm going to return them to the referring doctor for an anterior edge or cornea check in 6 months, and as previously directed for their annual eye exam. Make sure the doctor knows that they're coming back and that you didn't take the patient permanently, and then you're going to direct them for when you need to see the patient back again, in this case 1 year. And just continue to keep that open line of communication available for everyone. And so that's really where we end off with our scleral lens, building a scleral lens practice. And next week we're going to resume on Wednesday, April 19th, where Dr. Deom is going to take the lead and let us get more information on how we get paid, how do we code and bill for these lenses so that we can properly be reimbursed. And so we just had a couple of finishing slides here. Dr. Deom, do you mind taking us through those last couple?
Yeah, I think one, you talked about thinking outside the box. That's, sorry, excuse me, everybody, I have a cuckoo clock in the background. So, one little thing that, you mentioned was thinking outside the box, thinking about different types of patients, thinking about different ways that you can present this lens modality. And one is in our multifocal patients. I think the holy grail of contact lens applications is multifocal patients at this point, especially toric multifocals. I often see people asking or questioning, how or what lens you would pick to fit a toric multifocal patient. And I think one great challenge that we have here was to create a scleral multifocal, and Valley Contacts Custom Stable has come out with the Aurora, which is really a fantastic design, a lens that I took part in the clinical study with and had over an 80% success rate with. The previous scleral multifocal design, my success rate was somewhere around 40%. And if I have a toric multifocal patient, I would often go to a specialty soft lens. Now with the Aurora, I don't hesitate at all. I pop them right in that lens and often will have success with it. So, one, I think people are a little afraid of this modality. So Valley wants to make that a little bit more accessible in allowing, all of you to think outside the box, offer this lens to your patients, and hopefully build your scleral lens practice and base of patients. Because we know there's a ton of soft lens, toric lens patients out there that are reaching presbyopia that just don't have the ability to see in some of the soft toric multifocals that are out there. So the custom stable Aurora is a beautiful toric multifocal scleral lens, and you can get your first set free. So with the fitting set purchase. So we want to thank you all tonight for coming on. We do have a couple other questions that we're going to field now.
Great. So that first question that I see from Victoria is, can you provide a ballpark of the number of visits your fits typically take, or an average amount of chair time? And so I think that's a great question, because if we're trying to set prices and move into coding and billing, I think that that's really pertinent. So for me, I would say that my average number of visits falls somewhere in the 4 to 6 range for my actual finding a lens that works for the patient and them being happy with it and finalizing a prescription. And so that would include this, moving back to this slide, this comprehensive eye exam, initial fitting, dispensing that first lens. This is, if we look at exam 3 there, this is where I may reorder a lens if I don't think that it's adequate vision or comfort or fit, and then exam 4 or 5. So I would maybe add 1 or 2 to that. So I'd say between 4 and 6 before I'm finalizing a lens. What do you think, Dr. Deom?
Absolutely. I was thinking the exact same thing, so I'm glad you said that. And I think a lot of doctors are a little, they might fit one lens and it takes them 8 visits, and they're like, this is way too much time, way too much share time, and, I'm doing all these rebates. Am I going to not be profitable on this? Well, next talk, we're going to talk about how to stay profitable, how to bill and code correctly on those follow-ups and get paid for them, number 1. Number 2, these visits are very short and problem-focused. So, despite the fact that you might have 4 or even 8 visits, they're short problem-focused visits. And so you're having the patient come in, check the vision, assess the lens, and make the changes that you think may be necessary. They're 5 minutes, especially for the follow-ups. The longest one, is probably the insertion and removal visit, which you're not even going to be doing. One of your, talented staff is going to be doing. So, I think they're short problem-focused visits.
I agree. And I think that once you get accustomed to how your flow goes through your practice, you will see that the chair time becomes a real relative term, because there is so much downtime for these patients that they can easily be scheduled alongside another patient because your actual physical contact with that patient is so minimal during that follow-up visit.
So I just threw up a couple questions there, and they're all sort of directed towards billing and coding and finances. So I'm going to give, just a little teaser for you all based on that and say, what's the national average for a scleral lens fit? We'll answer that next time. Are you billing separately for each visit? Maybe. Are you billing for each appointment? Maybe. No, I'm just kidding. We are gonna answer all those questions, but let's answer them at our billing and coding lecture next time. I promise we will go over each one of those questions. So let's see. I do have a couple other good ones, Dr. Collier.
I think that final question from Dr. Sparks, Brett Sparks. These lenses are obviously pricey for patients who don't qualify. How do you not scare them away? And so I think that would fall under the practice management side of things and kind of setting expectations. And so I think that obviously you have to assess the motivation for the patient being in the lenses and how much of an improvement in their quality of life are they going to achieve with the lens, and lay it out to the patient just like that. These lenses can improve either your vision, your comfort, your wear time, the way your eyes look, the way your eyes feel, all of these factors, and say that they are a highly customized technology that requires multiple visits, and that the cost of those lenses reflect that. And I find that if you prioritize the lens as a quality of life improvement to the patient, and as long as you approach it with realistic expectations, I find that the end-of-day cost ends up being less and less of an issue, and that it's never our place to prioritize what a patient can afford based off of our own conception of them.
Dr. Collier, I'm just going to really quick answer some of those billing questions. I feel bad, just in case you're not able to come next time. But the national average, I don't think there's any information on that out there. Fees are always a little hairy to discuss, but I did do an independent research on practices in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I shadow called some of them, and they were priced anywhere between $500 and $1,200 per lens. Again, that's not my pricing. I'm not telling you where to put your prices, but that was just some independent research that I did in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. You asked if we're billing separately for each visit. The answer to that is yes, and I will go into that in more detail next time. And then the other question was, do you charge a fee just to try a lens on and see how they respond? And the answer to that is no. I do not, just for the one eye, see how it feels. No, I do not charge for that quick little thing. And I think if you're really good at putting it on and taking it off, that'll only take you 3 minutes at the most. Dr. Collier, do you want to answer the preservative-free question there?
Sure. I use Lacropure in my practice. That is my preference. I think that it's two things. One is it was until very recently the only FDA-approved solution, and I find my patients find value in that. And two, it's a bit of another stream of revenue for the practice, and that we can either stock it or have them order it online. Many practitioners use Addipac, so preservative-free saline inhalation solution, which is a cost-effective modality. You can order it on Amazon. And then I like Pure Lens too. That's the only one that's in a bottle, so you can actually get some pressure and really rinse off the lenses with it. But I prefer personally Lacropure. How about you, Dr. Deom?
Yeah, I first of all really appreciate that Valley sends, a little starter kit with Lacropure and the Pure Lens in it. I think that really starts you off on a really nice footing. To show to the patient, hey, this is, sort of the most professional, best evidence-based approach we have to, the fluids. We still do provide in our educational pamphlet that we provide to patients, kind of like you were describing, the locations to get the other solutions like Amazon. And we do sell boxes of Addipac in our office that we pre-purchase on Amazon. So, I still use Addipac probably primarily, but we do really like Lacropure, and we're trying to move our office in that direction.
Great. I'm going through and just answering some of the questions by typing too. So if we don't get to them verbally, check your question because they will be answered there too as much as we can. We're back to Chris Jaron about corneal transplants. I fit large amount of my Scleral patients are actually post-transplant. I think that is a great modality for these patients. You can keep the lens off of their cornea and not upset that diseased tissue, and we can achieve great comfort and vision. I think you just need to be real cognizant of the fact that edema is a possibility, and so monitor these patients closely and fit with the highest oxygen concepts that you can. So highest PK material, as well as the thinnest clearance that allows you to stay off of the cornea. And in those patients, educate them about signs of corneal edema, like halos, blurred vision, and make sure that they wear an appropriate eye shine.
The next question from Alex and Brian are kind of the same. They're talking about, the types of lenses, the types of designs for different types of patients. And I think that generally speaking that, when you, fit a couple of these lenses and you get the basic premise of the custom stable design, and I think, that we will, in future webinars, go into a little bit more detail about, the custom stable lens and the design and, the curves and everything else that you'll understand that, despite, there being lots of different, fit sets from varying manufacturers that are aimed at certain pathologies, you'll understand that you can make changes to custom stable or custom stable elite very easily, and that you can fit, pretty much all of your patients in this one modality. It has varying diameters and very easy to change parameters. I pretty much, exclusively use the custom stable in our office, and we have, everything from the worst cones, transplants, cicatricial pemphigoid patients, terrible Sjogren's eyes, you name it, we have it. And you can pretty much get a custom stable on the eye that's going to help those patients. So despite I think some of the marketing efforts from other labs having cone specific designs or regular eye designs, you're able to adjust this lens so easily to address those concerns that I don't think it's really necessary to if you're just starting out, especially the custom stable elite is going to really be a great lens to get all of your needs satisfied. What do you think, Cory?
I would say I piggyback on that and say that this comes back to the beginning of the lecture in understanding your lens design. And so the fact that you have decided to integrate scleral lenses into your practice, I think the absolute first thing that a provider fitting scleral lenses should do is familiarize themselves with a specific lens design. Understand that design as much as you can inside and out. Understand how to change it, how to modify it, and how to achieve success with it. And I think that the future webinars that we'll be doing and some of the fitting resources that are available on our websites and in the fitting guide can help expand on that for the custom stable. But I think once you understand the custom stable lens design, you will find that it can be successful in the range of corneas like Dr. Deom was talking about. And I think that it truly comes back to your understanding of the lens design in it being simple enough to apply to the majority of your patients, but customizable enough to really troubleshoot those hard-to-fit eyes.
And know that, the consultants are there at Valley, and, Cory and myself are here for you as well. I'm going to put my email up right here. Please feel free. I have colleagues emailing me pictures, asking me ideas all the time about scleral lenses, so please feel free to shoot myself or Cory an email so that we can help you achieve success with some of these lenses.
Absolutely, and I just put my email up there on the page as well. So by all means, send us emails. Let us help you along this process. I think that both Dr. Deom and I are just truly excited about this lens modality, how much it's made an impact in the population, and if we can help you achieve similar results, we will be very excited with the outcome. So,
one quick question there about good learning materials on more complex fits. You Dr. Collier did a really good job at highlighting, certainly the meetings. I think the meetings are very scleral lens centric right now. We have lots of good education on it, and I think, they're trying to come up with ways to reframe the scleral and make it still exciting, because people are jumping into it and getting involved, and now they're looking for more advanced information about it. So definitely keep your eyes open for different, meetings and, troubleshooting seminars and webinars and so on and so forth. And we're going to be doing some of those webinars here in the coming months, Dr. Collier and myself. Another great resource that I really love and I utilized in the beginning of my scleral lens career was the GPLI. I really did like the GPLI website and saved webinars. Dr. Collier, did you ever use those?
I did. I listened to every archived GPLI webinar on that website, I can tell you. And I think it made a really big impact on how I approach scleral lenses.
Yeah, I've done the same thing, and I would encourage each and every one of you to do it. You won't be sorry. You'll really appreciate all the information that you get from them on there. Let's see. Here's one other one.
One more question here about tips on removal.
Yeah.
And so this is something that comes up quite often. Is what is the patient doing to remove the lenses, and why are they getting these funny symptoms afterwards? And so one thing that I always stress to patients is to completely spread the upper and lower eyelid as much as possible. Sometimes that upper eyelid does not get out of the way enough, and as they're removing the lens, it causes that top portion of the lens to kind of crash down into their cornea and be less comfortable. Second is with your removal tool, make sure you are as near to the edge of the lens as possible, but being completely on the lens, so that you can make sure to help break that suction or break the connection between the lens and the eye. In a PKP, and many patients who are struggling removing, I also tell them to lubricate the eyes before they remove the lens, so that there's more hydration there and that the lens can be freed a little bit easier. I would say these are my biggest tips for those patients. I don't see any reason why it would be specific to a PKP patient versus someone else.
Yes, that is the website, the Gap Perm Lens Institute. Just go there, and there should be some tab on there that says, saved webinars. I think they do a webinar every month.
Yeah, I think it is technically gpli.info.
Okay.
Not .com. Correct.
Yeah, if you just search GPLI or Gap Perm Lens Institute, it should come up.
It'll come up. Yeah.
Great.
All right. So I think this is where we will sign off for the night. Look forward to our next webinar next Wednesday with Dr. Deom leading our coding and billing webinar. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email us and look to the Custom Stable and Valid Contacts websites for more resources. Until then, thank you, everyone.